Okay, just logistics before we start. You guys are going to film. They're going to film me, but what's going to be edited out, nothing personal, but is you guys.
Get out of here.
That's what I was told. The questions you ask are not going to be on the film.
So you want us up front?
Yeah, just so we can have a little more.
Edit out.
No,
Well, sat in the back.
That's why David sat up front.
this is what I was told. So
What if we just take up all the time asking questions?
then I'll do it in the next one, I guess. This is one after this. It's definitely meant to be interactive. You should have two handouts. I'm going to... And one of the things I'd like you to remind me to do is, we'll call it Michaelie's parable. We have a parable at the end that Michaelie said, you can share this with anybody. And I don't want to get so into what we're doing that we forget it, because it's really precious what she wrote about the experience. So if you can remind me, and let me get my little clock out so that we stay on time.
What was it, the person that was supposed to remind you of?
Just remind me to tell the parable at the end. It'll take about 4 minutes. Are you guys, you're good to go, okay? Does anybody know what this is supposed to be called? Somebody look it up. It's the, no, not that one. A tool for awakening to our oneness with God and each other. Okay. All right, here we go. Thank you. Now you know how we really work at BSL. We come up with a title in January, and then it evolves over the next 9 months. Dick just trusts us, and we teach whatever we want. But look what happens. Look how it comes together. That's what I absolutely love, the connection. I did not speak to one of them prior. None of us spoke to any of us prior, other than through Dick. But they didn't say, oh, Helen's doing this, and you do this. It's just connected that way. So it's really precious. Yeah. Jamie had no idea what we were doing or what I was doing. Right, she's way into the Enneagram and has been using it for quite a while, but she didn't know. During the weekend we ended up talking about it, but she didn't know that at all otherwise. Yeah. Last year she introduced herself. Part of her intro was, hi, I'm an 8, but most people didn't necessarily know what that means, so yeah. Okay, so our focus today, what I'd like to do is sort of tee up the Enneagram, give you an overview of it. It's the challenge here is to give you a little bit of it, then you might leave actually thinking you understand it, and then you might think, oh, you can start sort of typing people, which is a complete misuse of the tool. That's not what we're doing at all. So I'm not going to dwell on that. I'll paint that picture, sort of an overview, but that's not where we're going to focus. I'm going to focus more on what's called the levels of development, which is an extremely useful part of the tool that shows how much of our thinking is open to presence and how much of our thinking is sort of locked in ego. And there's sort of a healthy range, an average range, and an unhealthy range. That's what I'm going to focus on, kind of independent of type, just to give you a little bit of that. This is all part of it, but that's just a big picture of where I'm going. I'm going to tee up the Enneagram. At any point, ask any questions. If we get too many questions, then I'm just going to keep directing us since we only have an hour. And the sheet that you have that I gave you there is the levels of development, and it's an overview of that. So we will be going through that, but not first. The other sheet just describes 3 of the next Enneagram programs, and on the back are some testimonials from some of the just current people. You may recognize Martha Duran, who used to be on the board here. She's a good buddy. All right. Any questions so far?
Sandy, will you mention what the course is that follows the Enneagram?
I can, yeah. It's called Applying the Enneagram. There, I just mentioned it. Yeah, I can do that. I can give an overview. So Enneagram, here's the symbol. It's actually a circle, but it's not really a circle, but it is a circle. I mean, that's how it came out on the little machine here. But Ennea means 9 and gram means shape. So this is deeply metaphysical. It's just 9 shape. That's what it is. The purpose of the Enneagram is to give you what I would say is an inspired self-observation tool to aid the transformation of consciousness. An inspired self-observation tool to aid the transformation of consciousness. As any spiritual tool, its goal is to facilitate your union with divinity or with divine essence. That's the point. So when used as intended, it allows you to catch and depersonalize the ego and the conditioned mind. That's the beauty of it. You can just go, oh, boom, got it, next. As opposed to going, oh, geez, I can't believe I did that again. Why do I always? You just start to go, oh, look, that's just how that shows up. It can even help you bring to the surface those kind of repressed hot buttons. So I kind of think of this as sort of, it's like the supreme non-judgment tool. At least that's what it's been for me. It's just amazing to be able to look out and catch stuff and just not label anybody or anything other than just say, oh, that's a typical characteristic of type 7. You know, maybe at this level. Got it. No judgment at all, just awareness of that. Another way to think about it is, it's a system illustrating how divine presence embraces us here and now. It shows 9 unique ways that you express this shining presence when you're in your zone. So when you're having a good day and things are really flowing, there's in a sense 9 different flavors, kind of like 9 colors of the rainbow. We have all of this within each of us. But we have a preference, we have an individuality, and it tends to go towards one of these characteristics. Could be 9 with some 1, could be 9 with some 8, it could be anywhere in that circle. Nobody knows why we arrive that way, but it's just what happens. It also illustrates ways that you may show up when you're having an off day. That's the darkness. So that's where it's really healthy. Because we do sometimes pretty well in the on days, but in the off days we start to judge ourselves. So this helps us not do that. It shows us how we developed a way of coping or surviving, how we've learned to deal with life. So bottom line is, your personality is not who you are. They're fond of saying, this does not put you in a box, it shows you the box you're already in and helps you get out of it. So I think of personality as a trance, sort of a robotic program, a 3D blueprint of kind of your operating system. And so to me, the Enneagram is a tool to observe yourself and others with utter compassion and kindness. That is the intent. After an Enneagram program, if it's taught effectively, there should be this sense of compassion that is there and understanding. And I'll give you some examples of that. So where did it come from? I made up a term, simultaneous emergence. Sounds kind of like I went to school for that, this kind of thing. But in other words, thousands of years in various traditions, this is what's shown up. I'll give you an example. In the Kabbalah, which is the kind of the mystical side of Judaism, they have something called the Tree of Life, which Jerry is, do you have some pendants over there? Yeah, she's got some amazing jewelry of the Tree of Life. But the Tree of Life has 10 branches. One of the branches represents the combination of all of them together, or the Godhead. This is my understanding, as it's been explained to me. Each of the other 10 branches represents a path to enlightenment, or a different type of enlightenment, or a flavor. So there's a red, or blue, or green. I don't know if they've attached colors. But I'll give you 2 examples. One type, this would be for, it happens to be a type 1, but when that individual who imbibes those qualities, expresses those characteristics, it's called a holy idea, and there's a holy sense of perfection They just look out and see the sacred. It's just like good is everywhere. No matter what's showing up, this is at the highest level, they just see good. Their life is to be here in service to that goodness. Like, without even trying. They're called the reformer, because if the good's not showing up, they're going to help it show up. Because they're just passionate about that. So life is sacred, and I live to manifest that and to be in service of it. So that would be just a tiny little overview of a type 1 at the highest level. I'll contrast it with a type 4 down here. Type 4, which is called the individualist, their holy idea, what they're in touch with, and again, it's not mutually exclusive, but we kind of have a home base. What they're in touch with is this holy sense of origin. They get that there's one creation, one creator, and that we are all connected. And that we're all involved in this creative process of life unfolding itself. And so their life is this creative dance that just lives to bring that out. To bring out the individuality in people, to see that beauty, and to express that. Possibly in a form of art. If they do art, it's very autobiographical because it's all about identity. It's all about their life. The four's life is an answer to, who am I? That's their focus. Now, those are related, but they're subtly different. And there's 9 different ones of these. Well, here's what's fascinating. We've heard a lot from various people about the Council of Nicaea. Prior to the Council of Nicaea in 323, there were 9 deadly sins. They didn't like 2 of them. I guess Helen makes me want to study a lot about that, because I think they cut out a lot of interesting stuff. So they brought it down to 7. So what they cut out, this is classic. Imagine these dudes sitting around figuring out what they cut out was vanity. Hello. Vainglory or vanity or deceit. And then they also cut out faithlessness, which turns into anxiety or fear or angst. So here's what's fascinating. When you're having an on day, when you're in your zone, when there's no ego sort of blocking you or infiltrating, you're going to express these holy ideas and these amazing virtues and just feel like no self-consciousness and just like you're really flowing. When you're having an off day, you're going to default to one of these 9 deadly sins. Fascinating. So I'll give you the example. So this holy perfection for the 1, in their zone, they are the flow of good, and they see this everywhere. But when the holy idea is not happening in their experience, they get a little frustrated and angry. Or another way to say it, especially with themselves first, but then others. Another way to say it is wrathful, or more of just even resentful. It's kind of like good is so obvious to them. It's like, what do you mean you don't recycle? It's like, hello? I mean, come on. Or, I told you where to put your shoes. Come on, this is our house. Look at the mud. Oh, God. You said you'd call when you're leaving the office late and you didn't. Hello? How tough is a call? So that's not real pretty stuff. But that's resentment. Or, what do you mean you don't know about God? You don't believe in God? Hello? It's like, clearly you don't get it. So that's the beginning of anger. They can get pretty angry, but then after they do that, because their life is a stance for good, they go, oh, there I go again. What an idiot. I can't believe it. Look, I can't even talk to my kids now because, look, I'm condemning them up and down, and I just, So there's this, the inner critic for the 1 here is just going wild. Lots of judgment happening at the average levels there. So high level, holy perfection, just seeing the sacredness everywhere. Low average level is more of a sense of, how come the sacred's not showing up? It's up to me to reform. So I basically have to be everybody's teacher. It's my role. So that's what I'm going to do, is take it all on and teach it all out. Even if you don't want to hear it, you're going to get it. especially if I have a relationship with you. Like I'm your boss or your parent or your whatever. Contrast that with the 4, this holy sense of origin, one creator, one creation, one life. My life is a continual search for an expression of what am I? I see this unique specialness in each of us and this outpouring of one life. So just amazing. 2 of our kids are 4s. And so one is a Hollywood photographer, the other one writes children's books. And just amazing. This latest book called The Human Balloon, the pictures came first and the story came later. That's not really the one would not do it that way. The one would write the story and then get the pictures to go with it. This is a completely different space. So, in their zone, they see that we're all part of this creative flow and express a unique creative intelligence. When the holy idea is not happening in the experience, their passion or sin is envy. So instead of one creator, many creators. Oh, my artwork's not as good as her artwork. What's the matter with me? So this whole search for identity, it becomes sort of, oh, I'm kind of defective. What's going on with that? I don't have worth unless I'm better than somebody else. So there starts to be this comparison space. Just a second. So there's a feeling of down here in the sort of envy space, I'm flawed compared to them. I don't fit in. I want and need to be special, but I'm not. Oh well. So they spend a lot of time sort of dreaming and fantasizing about how life could be. Away from now, away from reality, into this dream world. Super moody up and down. Huge mood swings. So that would be envy showing up. So each Enneagram type reveals a path of identifying and going through your type's passion or sin and the fear that comes up. That's the darkness. Because that's the stuff that we've pushed down. And so when we allow it to come up, we can depersonalize it and just let it go. Your type, if you will, is what shows up when you don't. The more healthy you are, the higher you are. It's really hard to even figure out the type because you're expressing all the holy ideas everywhere. And you can just tap into anything at any time and it's no problem. Tends to show up more in the human experience, easier to identify at the average levels or below. So, and again, the personality would be how you say no to the moment. So here's the key. Everything in the physical universe, as I've talked about before, is form changing shape. Everything is always changing shape. When you haven't found the formless, you get addicted to form and formats. When you have not found the formless, you get addicted to doctrine, you get addicted to books, you get addicted to what somebody said, all these different forms and formats, and you can quote them up and down out the wazoo, and that's what you're addicted to. It's because you're not in touch with the formless. The formless doesn't need defending. So your type, if you will, at these average levels is a fixation on form. I want it to be this way, and it's my job to help everybody get it. It's how you try to construct your world so that it doesn't change. Really huge, and we could take half an hour on any one of these statements. It's how you try to construct your... Anytime you want somebody to be different than they are, you don't like the way they've constructed their world. You want them to change. It's so that you're in control in your own mind. Presence, grace, not better human thinking is the only thing that dissolves these fixations. It's grace. It's Holy Spirit that we've been hearing about. So through understanding the Enneagram, the conditioned mind is depersonalized. The subconscious and the unconscious, they're made conscious, and when you look at it, you go, why would I choose that? It makes no sense. So it helps you see the patterns and recognize the scripts when you fall into stress. You can also discern the paths of integration to wholeness. So you get a much more of a clear path of what that looks like. I'll give you just a couple of examples and then we'll answer any questions. One good buddy of mine is type 9. He's been through the class, he's type 9. This is my big chance to use my little red guy here. Not that you can see it, but there, okay. So he's type 9, and that's called a peacemaker. And so the gist, it's holy love, is, yes?
I don't understand how that relates to the level 9, which is the pathological.
Absolutely unrelated.
Okay.
This is why it's a little confusing. There are 9 types and there are 9 levels. I'm just giving an overview here, but we're going to spend more time there. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah. So this gentleman happens to be a type 9, which is a peacemaker. Briefly, what they can fall, there, you just want to be around the 9 because you just feel like all is well. I'm a 3. But I integrate to 9, which means when I'm in a healthy space, you're going to experience 9 as well. That all is well. It's like your home. My wife's a 9. 2 of our kids are 9s. So Jamie, this person happens to be a 9, and at the average levels, what can happen is your problem becomes my problem because there's supposed to be peace, and so my job is to make peace inside and outside. So my full-time job is to make sure every one of my relationships is in peace, is peaceful. It's exhausting. But I can become a doormat because I'll do anything just to make sure there's peace. I'll often retreat, and that's like a full-time job and like impossible. And so that is so exhausting. I will retreat into my sort of inner sanctum to avoid conflicts, huge avoiding of conflicts. And think that if you're angry, I think if you're angry, if I'm a 9, if you're angry, it means you don't love me. Whereas if Jamie was here, the Jamie from yesterday, Jamie, what's her last name? Thank you. I knew one of them. Right. She's the 8, and she's like the power, the strength, the things like that. Very different than the 9. The 9 is much quieter. So, we were going over these types in detail in the class, and we were going over type 6 down here. 6 is called the loyalist. I won't go into it in too much detail, but all of a sudden this young man got a view of his dad, because the way we described it in detail, he just went, oh my goodness, that's my dad. And he said, it's the first time in my life I've ever seen this in an impersonal way, because his dad used to occasionally lose it at him, and then he thought, the story that he made up is my dad doesn't love me. This is his dad acting out the 6 space, and occasionally 6s lose it. It's like occasionally 6s lose their key. Okay, so I lost my key. I mean, it's that impersonal. But the amazing thing was, he got it. Right there in the class, he tears up, starts crying, because of the love and compassion he instantly felt for his dad. That his dad was acting out a script. Not personal bad dad, and not personal bad me, because I couldn't get dad to not be angry. Amazing. After the program, and we have conference calls in the program, the program's spread out over 3 months. On the phone, this is what he said. He said he called his dad after the class, and he said, and I don't know, Jamie's probably 25 or something. He said, I've never told you this, but I love you. I understand you. And I see you. And then what he said next absolutely took away our breath. He said, this was not forgiving my dad. There was nothing to forgive. It was done. Just through the awareness, completely impersonalized it, let it go in a heartbeat, if that isn't grace, and then boom. And the relationship has soared since then. Another one, fairly experienced, this person was with the Enneagram. They thought they were a 7, which is the enthusiast. Bubbly, outgoing, just really absolutely fired up. Try this, try that, try this, try that. But after he took the test, he wasn't quite sure, and as I got to know him, I said, I don't think that fits. So it turns out he was a 4, as I described, more this individualist. Well, for him, because he'd understood the Enneagram for a couple of years, it was sort of like just kajing. It was like he had a new lease on life. For the first time ever, he said, I understand myself with incredible clarity. He stopped taking himself and others so seriously, which is no small matter for a 4. This type is really intense. He'd not been in communication with his parents for 17 years, and he's probably 40. Because they spent his childhood trying to change him, and 4s will resist change. I know a woman who's in her 50s, but she said, when I was 6, I went to my parents, and I said to them, Mom and Dad, they made a mistake. This is not my family. 6-year-old, this is not my family. And I need to leave. And they said, oh, honey, okay, well, you can't leave till you're 18, so can you sort of hang with us until you're 18? Then you can leave if you want. She said, okay. 18, she's out of there. They have this sense of who they are and they're just going to call it out. Sorry, Dad, but you're not my dad. You can pretend, but... So they spent his childhood trying to change him, and he resisted their attempts. What was amazing, once he saw that he was a 4, it all dropped away. He called them. He had an amazing conversation for over an hour. Now he texts his mom all the time. About a month ago, he was in the middle of an intense work situation. He had to fly out to California from St. Louis to meet with the president of his company. And after meeting, he spends 45 minutes on the phone debriefing his parents. It's that kind of connection. He said, it's a complete game changer for me. And for me, it's just been super tangible in terms of just running at the darkness, seeing these subconscious and unconscious patterns. Annie with a 9 and me with a 3, and understanding these, and this is how she might respond if she's not in a good space, but seeing her in light of the holy ideas no matter what. So it's been huge in helping sort of resurrect the marriage there. So, any questions before we go through the levels of development? Now that I realize that took half an hour to do that, thought it would take 10 minutes. Just kidding. Questions? Yes?
Say 6 was a loyal.
The loyalist. 6 is the loyalist. Yeah, I can give you the best website I know to find out about this. It's called EnneagramInstitute.com. Enneagram Institute, spelled like that, institute.com. They've just redone their website, and it's marvelously clear. This is the book I would recommend, called The Wisdom of the Enneagram. This is the one we use in the class. It's by Russ Hudson, Don Riso and Russ Hudson. You can find it on Amazon or on their website. The Wisdom of the Enneagram. Got a deeply spiritual dimension throughout. They've written about 7 or 8 books, and this one is their most current and just phenomenal. You can just keep going back to it. So many people have read this and just kind of go, how did they know? But, I forgot to say, I mentioned the Kabbalah. It's been traced into Christianity, Buddhism, the Desert Father and Mothers, indigenous cultures, Hinduism. Russ Hudson, one of these guys, went over to Egypt recently, and there's 9 different, whatever they call on the stone, the pictures, what are they called? Hieroglyphs? Yeah, the ones that they've actually built, representing each of these types. I mean, it's literally everywhere, but because of the internet and because we're so connected now, it's all started to come together. So that's what's amazing and why it's really starting to pick up in popularity. It's been taught in its own sort of unique way, not in the exact way I'm teaching you, for thousands of years, literally, in all these different traditions. It's completely cross-denominational. I went to an international conference, and there were people literally from around the world representing all kinds of religions and exploring this in prisons and all different kinds of ways, in healthcare, and it's just amazing. So the EnneagramInstitute.com, and if you're interested in taking a little survey, it costs $12. They have a free one, which I wouldn't really recommend, but the $12 one is called the RHETI, R-H-E-T-I. You'll see it there, and takes about 45 minutes, but then you get the results, and you can just start to explore the website. You can even explore the website without that. Yes.
I took that test.
Yep.
The Ready, and then there was something else, but it wasn't like the book, Sammy, the wings in there. It was some other test to figure out your...
Yeah, the instinctual variance. Yeah, don't worry about that. I've taken 4 programs and they haven't even brought that up yet. That's how many levels and things like that. So that's a piece that's useful, but way down the line.
That didn't help with what
I took the test too and it didn't help me either. This was huge. Yes, Sandy.
Does this relate to any other sort of psychological tests that people take? Myers-Briggs,
yes, they have. I don't have that inherent in my thinking right now, but I think their book called Personality Types, it may actually do the cross-reference, and it was originally on their older website. So it's not a one-for-one because there's 16 of those types and this is 9, but yes, they have cross-reference. The main difference is what we're going to look at now, which is the levels of development, because Myers-Briggs is more horizontal, just like this would be in a sense horizontal. It tells you the types. I would not be doing this with you if it wasn't for the levels of development, because this is what turns it into a transformational tool. This is just hugely useful. But so yes, they have done that. Yeah, I'm 3 and an EFNP, either INFP or ENFP, if that means anything. So look at this. We'll just go over this briefly here. It says the levels of development illustrate the vertical dimension of the Enneagram. It turns an observable horizontal typing instrument into a transformational tool. It gives us an objective way to observe and measure our degree of identification with our personality structures. The mechanisms of the personality are set in motion by what is called a basic fear of the type. Each type kind of has a fear, like a fear that I won't be accepted, or fear that I'm not going to be safe. 6s are concerned about security. 9s are afraid that they're just often anxious, and they're afraid that they're not going to be at peace. Everything's not going to be okay. So there's these different fears. And the basic fear arises out of the inevitable loss of contact with our essential nature in early childhood. So that picture I showed in the last talk of Millie there's no fear there. That was just undifferentiated oneness. Well, as she gets older, some of these fears can come in because, like, where's dinner when I need it? When she was in the womb, it was like everything was instant. She's still in that space of just sort of seeing oneness. She doesn't have to lose that, but most of us do as we go through because our needs are not met like they were prior to this. And so that's why we get a little bit of afraid. Or we start to judge ourselves, like if I had my act together, Mom would have fed me sooner. Or I just get really angry because she didn't feed me. Or it's not safe out there, I'm just afraid. Or I'm ashamed, jeez, I'm just ashamed. I mean, there are various different ways that it shows up. Third paragraph says, the basic desire is what arises so we can get rid of the basic fear. This is pretty logical stuff, because nobody likes to hang out in fear. It's what we believe will make us okay. So the ego emerges as a way we try to be the kind of person who will be able to consistently fulfill that desire. So, fourth paragraph, in our desire to regain this essential nature, so the idea is that you've got the goods, but we're not in touch with it. The levels of development track the inner logic of each type, helping us see how we lose our way and become alienated from ourselves, others, and the divine. It also shows us how to regain our inner state of presence and self-awareness. So there's healthy, as you can see, there's healthy, average, and unhealthy. The lower you go, the more ego is showing up. The more constriction, the more control you're trying to have, the more it's up to me. So level 1, and we may not go through all of these, we especially don't need to go through 7, 8, and 9 because those are pretty dark. But let's look at these. The level 1 is called the level of liberation. So this is illustrated by the holy ideas. Our primary desire in this space is self-actualization. So when you're in that space, just yearning for that, and actually there's no sense of self-consciousness, you're just in your zone, that's level 1. We're liberated from basic fear and basic desire. At this level, I'm not afraid, and this may sound a little strange, I don't even have a purpose at this level. I'm just being. This is Byron Katie, Adyashanti, Eddie. It's when you're in your zone, you're not thinking, wow, I'm so in my zone, I'm glad I'm on my purpose. You may be thinking that prior, but when you're in that expression, so we let go of our self-image in that space. There's no separate sense of self. We have tangibly rediscovered our selfless connection with the divine, transcending personality. For those of you that were here last year or in the workshops that I've done prior to this, this is the spiritual awakening cycle. This is the space of freedom in that space. For most of us, we have glimpses of that. Most of us, certainly I do not hang out there all the time, but we have glimpses of that. The theory is that you may be, let's say, at a level 4, which means sometimes you dip down to level 7, but sometimes you go up to level 1. So there's huge variety moment by moment, depending upon the circumstance, the hot button that's pushed, or just what's happening. Level 2 is called the level of psychological capacity. So we identify ourselves with a set of qualities. Here's where we start to think, I am worthy. I am capable. See, that's a little different from level 1. A felt sense of self arises at level 2. This is still extremely healthy. We form a self-image or a self-concept. The ego arises here as we attempt to use our basic desire to quell any underlying anxiety or basic fear. We're concerned that we can't live up to our ideal self-image. So that concern may start to arise at this level 2. But it's called the level of psychological capacity to reinforce that you are capable and complete. You have the goods. And the third level in the healthy level is the level of social value or social gift. And the idea here is to prove that we are the self that we defined ourselves in as level 2. And to prove we have value, we bring a social gift, something of unique value to the world. Our focus is to live consistently through adding this value or gift or this purpose. If you are in a company where people are expressing any of these levels, you never want to leave. It is so healthy. It's so refreshing. It releases your potential. It brings out the best in you. Or if you're in a relationship where this is happening, you just feel like, oh my goodness, thank you, Lord. It's just absolute, any of these levels, any of these. Probably the main thing I would like to emphasize in these levels is this next point. There's a big difference between level 3 and level 4. And level 4 is called the average level, and notice that it's called the level of imbalance. It says here, we fully identify with the egoic self and develop a social role. This is how we see ourselves and how we want others to respond to us. This contraction limits our ability to actualize our potential. This fixation makes us lose contact with presence and awareness. As soon as you say, well, I'm a dad, yep, it's up to me, or I'm the boss, it's my company, or whatever role, I'm the nurse, whatever role that you have put yourself in, and you start to feel a burden, like it's up to me, you've just dropped to level 4. So if somebody was explaining something to me and talking about how tough life is, and I got to do this, and I have this job, and I'm doing that, they're not talking about divinity at all in that moment. They're at level 4 or lower and just feeling the weight of the world. They basically have forgotten God. Huge difference between level 3 and level 4. So we won't go through them all, but there's a wake-up call. When you understand this theory, there's a wake-up call for each type. So when it looks like you're about to drop, if you understand this wake-up call, let's give you an example. You can just hear that and you go, oh, wait, good catch, thank you.
Be on more than one level at the same time, like maybe at work you were
Yep,
3, but at home you were 4.
absolutely. Yes. So we've been talking about ones. The wake-up call for level 1 is for type 1. Sorry, for the reformer type, when there's a feeling, when they're feeling a sense of personal obligation to fix everything themselves. It's kind of like it's up to me. I'm the mom. I'm the boss. When you feel that, that's a wake-up call. You're about to drop in the average level, and you may slip into the teacher mode because you got to teach everybody how to do it. Because I know. That's why I'm here on the planet. But at the average level, there's enough ego in there that people start going, can you teach somebody else? Because if you're really sucked into that, you might fall, cascade right down into level 5. And look at the next one, the level of interpersonal control or conflict. This is when we are so identified with our egoic self that we attempt to control our environment, especially other people, to reinforce the reality of this self-image and to gratify its demands. And so when you're starting to notice you're in conflict with others because they're not doing it right and you need them to do it differently, this is level 5. Been there, yeah, right. I haven't been there at all with my wife, no. I think I need a level 14. Level 6 is the level of overcompensation. So if the interpersonal control isn't working, I told her, and I'm getting a little upset, if it's not working, then I'm going to overcompensate. So our attempts at interpersonal control have failed. Aggression now arises as we try to pressure the environment, usually the people closest to us, to give us what we want. Different types do it in different ways. Some types do that by withdrawing. That would be more my type. If I'm in a not healthy space, I'm just going to go withdraw and do my spiritual bypasses. Jamie, if I was married to this Jamie, she'd be chasing me because she's going to be right in your face. You're not leaving. You are not leaving till this is settled. Very different space. The 3s want everybody to like them. They were concerned about self-image. And so I don't like to have any kind of discomfort or anything like that. So if I'm not in a healthy space, I'm just going to go get peaceful out there. 9s do this as well. There's some overlap here. Yeah. So I'm going to overcompensate. So people do it in different ways. So my wife is a 9. She'll withdraw, but when it gets too bad, then she loses it. I'm going to withdraw, and when it gets too bad, I'm going to withdraw more in this unhealthy space. So there's very subtle different ways. The 4s are just going to mope and just kind of put it all out there and just you will know when the 4 is upset. It's just going to be on the carpet. It's just going to be like, they're going to wear it, their body language, everything is just going to be like, oh. And instantly something else happens. Oh, yeah, that's good. Okay, great. So these average levels, what's fascinating as you start to understand these is that entire cultures can fall into these levels. Look at level 7. I'll give you an example. And there's a big difference between 6 and 7. I won't go into all that now. But this is called the level of violation. So if your overcompensating hasn't worked, then we violate and abuse the fundamental rights of others in order to defend and sustain the egoic self. We become addicted to one or more substances or behaviors as a way of reinforcing the false self and egoic structures. The addiction doesn't have to be drugs or something like that. It can be addicted to pleasing people. I mean, there are all kinds of things we can become addicted to in terms of just behaviors. And so we start to actually violate others emotionally or verbally or physically. And if that's not checked, level 8, and I'll illustrate this because this is definitely happening on the planet. The level of delusion, that's mental, and compulsion, that means you're acting off of this delusion. We protect ourselves at all costs from any threat to our extremely fragile self-image. Can you think of any countries that are now doing this? We are in repression and massive denial about reality, living in a make-believe world. We sacrifice our ability to know what is true or false, real or not real. We're extremely dangerous as well as physically and emotionally abusive to ourselves and others. When I first learned this, I was in a 5-day program with the Enneagram Institute, and I said to the woman in charge, I said, their entire countries stuck sort of at level 7 and level 8. And there's sacred texts to support this. She said, you mean like in the Old Testament? I said, yeah. When I co-led a trip to Israel and Palestine with the Euphrates Institute in 2012, and we met with Palestinians and Israelis. It was absolutely fascinating, about 30 different groups and people. And we met with a rabbi, and what he pointed out, and I don't have all the details, but he said, from our perspective, the Bible is written for the chosen people, so it's about us. So thou shalt not kill means thou shalt not kill chosen people, Jews. That's what it means, he said. But if you go on to read it, he said, and he said, this is not my opinion, this is the Word of God. This is how we live. And here's the key, he said, God tells us, the Jews, that if we think you are going to kill us, then we are to kill you first. And this is in the Bible. This is what he told us. Picture an entire defense philosophy based on that kind of thinking. Level 7, level 8. Fear, defensive, and I'm not saying if I went through what they went through, I may make up the same stuff. But I'm just saying, once you start to see these, it happens individually, it happens in relationships, it can be in a church, in a family, in a company. Many companies are at these lower levels. Russ Hudson, who's been doing this for 30 or 40 years, he feels, this is not a pretty message, but he feels that what describes the culture on the planet right now is level 6 headed towards level 7. Everybody trying to control everything, get it themselves, and the violation and violence that you see everywhere is just amazing. Yeah, his solution is to depersonalize it, get this out here, get the awareness going, and help people move up the levels. That is his absolute life work. He travels the world doing this. The people that I've been trained by call themselves spiritual practitioners. This is what they're doing. It's not, hope you have a good life, just a nice little personality fix. This is about transformation, absolutely bottom line. And these guys are deeply committed to that. Whether it's at an international level or a corporate level or in the prisons, and they're doing all this kind of work. It's just amazingly inspiring. Yes?
The country has, or a state of mind in the country has a level of healthy average.
Yes.
They also have an identifiable Enneagram type that they're coming from, so that you can work through that to get...
Does a whole country have an identifiable... There are cultures, for example, the German culture has been called a 6 culture, which is sort of follow the leader culture, which you kind of saw with Hitler. And so whether that's, everybody sort of maybe fell into that space, it doesn't mean that the only people who live there are 6s. But that can happen. They can start to adopt these roles and just blindly start to follow. The 6 at these low... See, what we do in the program is we go through each type and start to look at what that looks like. You really get to think about what your type would be like at each one of those levels, and that's where it gets really close to home. Yeah. Yes? Sure.
Is there any sort of relationship or correlation between the types and the levels in terms of like the integration and disintegration you had mentioned earlier?
Yes, that's what these lines represent. So if I'm a 3, I'm going to go, actually I said it wrong before. I'm going to go to 6, which means for me to be fuller, to me to express more of the fullness of who I am, I also need to express the high side of the 6, the healthy side of the 6. If I'm struggling, I'm going to fall into some of the lower side of the 9. So that's kind of what the lines represent in terms of, and that's a lot more than we can get into here, but that makes it extremely useful too, because it's a broader array of behaviors that you start acting out. And the books, all the books on the website, everything describes this in much more detail. And so you can really start to understand, wow, look what I do. I'm acting out this kind of situation. Is that what you were kind of talking about? Yeah. There's no correspondence to, like, 4s are all more at this level or anything like that. And there's no correspondence to why anybody showed up on the planet with a certain type. Just like, why did you show up as a male or a female or gay or straight or whatever. But where you start out on the levels of development can be dramatically influenced by the environment you grew up in. Healthier the environment, not for sure, but the more likely you're going to start in sort of a healthier place here.
Do these assume a certain level of mental health? Like, it's a tool for transformation to kind of connect with the divine in one another.
Yeah.
You have to assume that the person is aware enough to.
Right. Does it assume a certain level of mental health? Yes, it does. The levels 7 and below, basically if you're hanging out at the level 7 and below, you're not going to be able to get out of there by yourself. You need help. It's not if you dip into it. We all dip into it, and occasionally get violent or do something stupid or get addicted to sugar or whatever we're addicted to. And that kind of thing can happen. But when you're hanging out there, then you do need help to do that. And it's really grace that opens you up to it if there's a receptivity to go up to the levels. But a good friend of Annie's, my wife's, has just been so caught in alcohol, and she's starting to come out of it now, but she could not do it by herself. And she's a counselor that helps others. But she just couldn't find her way out of it. But she's starting to. So, yeah, down at the unhealthy levels, I don't focus as much there because most of the people I deal with dip there, but they don't live there. If somebody who's really living there, I would take them to somebody who has a specialty in blank, 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 whatever that might be.
I'm just curious, I see a connection. Each number has 2 connectors.
Yep.
So what is that indicating? There's
That,
1 goes to 4 and 4 goes to...
yeah, that was the level of integration and disintegration that he was just talking about.
Oh, okay.
So if I'm a 1, then I'm going to go towards a 7 or go towards a 4. So if I go towards the 4, I can start to get a little moody because you don't get it. You didn't put your shoes on, you didn't. So I can start to fall into some of the same kind of, and the 1s can also feel, because holy perfection is the way it is, they think they're supposed to be perfect. We've talked about that a little bit this week. Yes, human perfectionism. And so they feel defective because they're not perfect. That's what 4s feel as well. The 7s, they need to lighten up and take a breath. Man, have a smoke. I mean, have some fun. Just live in gratitude. Live in joy. Just be here right now. 7s in their zone are present in this moment, fully joyous, and oh my goodness. 1s could use some of that. They say 1s sometimes have to remind themselves to smile. That's at the average levels. So that's what the lines represent, which we go through in more detail. Yes, there's a couple more, and then I'm going to read you this little parable. Yeah?
Is there a cultural assumption that it is better to be present now and smiling rather than to be loyal to authority and respectful of your elders? Something like for me.
Yeah, no. Okay.
And do we have to be like happy, smiling, present, and
Do we have to be sort of happy, smiley, present? No, but for each type, It is an interesting question because obviously I haven't spent too much other than a little bit in the Middle East. I haven't spent time with a lot of other cultures, and Russ Hudson teaches this in Korea, for example, and Japan and China and South Africa and various places. The 7 is still the 7. It's still about gratitude. It's still about joy, but it can definitely be expressed in very different ways depending upon the culture. It's not meant to be a bubbly type thing or things like that. So there's something that resonates with a deep virtue. Like the 7 expresses this sense of it's the holy plan. It's the willingness to let everything be determined by the divine. When that's not happening, they think everything needs to be determined by me, so I'm going to have as many cool experiences as I can. And so it's gluttony. That's what they kick into. I'm going to eat everything I can. I'm going to eat this experience, and I'm in the middle of this meal, but I'm thinking about what's next, and I'm thinking about that. Yeah. So that's what happens with the 7. It's like bing, 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 bing. They're just all over. So the virtue is sobriety, which simply means whatever's happening right now, I'm okay with that. And that can take various different, depending upon culture, that can take different forms. But sobriety and this holy sense of plan is going to resonate deeply in my soul. One of the things just at the end here that in the program, what I do is I start with the holy ideas, which is I have 2 full pages of ideas for each type on the holy ideas before we go into it. And that's sort of my unique way to do it. That's not how I was taught, but to me that's starting from the basis of wholeness. And so I will read that. And so the holy idea for the 9, when I read that type, there was a woman in the class and she got real quiet and she said, when I take dictation and listen to God, this is what I've been hearing. I've been hearing these holy ideas. That's how Grace was speaking to her. Just absolutely resonated and blew her away. So here's the little parable at the end. This was a woman who took the program, probably in her mid-60s, and I always ask her feedback after programs just to see what I can improve on. And so what were your key insights and learning from this session? And this is what she said. The precious knowledge that I arrived on this earth, whole, pure, and unblemished, ready to let the uniqueness that is me, my true essence, shine forth. This woman does happen to be a Christian Scientist. But there went up a mist from the earth. Just kidding, sort of, she says. That true essence got covered up bit by bit, with the result that was, there once was a beautiful princess. In her youth, she knew only that she knew that she was loved and secure, and she delighted in everything she was learning to do. As the princess grew up, however, she began to compare herself to others. She happens to be a 9. Little by little, she began to think that she didn't shine as brilliantly as other people, and even began to doubt her royalty. You, a princess? That's a laugh, was the thought that took root in her consciousness. Obviously, this was the case, because if she was a real princess, she wouldn't have a growing pile of self-doubts and disappointments. Over time, she descended to thinking herself as a peon, one of the king's many foot soldiers, certainly not a daughter. Days of soldiering on tuned into months, then years. Except for the occasional successful looting and plundering, the only thing that distinguished one day from the next is that some days she carried her spear on the right shoulder and some days on the left. Just in a role. They can just be routine, just living my life. Then one day, a man appeared offering jugs of cold drinking water to thirsty soldiers. Many of the soldiers were too preoccupied with their little battle plans to notice him. But ones who took advantage of his offer of the water began to feel refreshed. The faux princess soldier couldn't help noticing that the other drinkers looked as war-weary and as tired of trudging through their days as she felt. The little group seized the opportunity to lay their heavy spears on the ground at the risk of being unprotected for a few moments. Ah, It felt so good to have this heavy thing off the shoulder. Then one soldier broke the silence and asked, "You're tired too?" They all nodded. One said, "It's been a long time since I was home with my family." And another, "I'm tired of war rations. Yeah, I could use a pair of boots that don't have holes." The man looked at each one of them with great tenderness. If soldiering isn't working for you, why don't you consider doing something else with your life? Not be a foot soldier? But it's the only life I know. My family might not recognize me or want me around because I've been gone so long. Where would I find work? Would I find enough to eat? If I'm attacked, who'd come to my aid? But it was a tantalizing proposition. The man didn't say so in so many words that he thought her foot soldier getup was an obvious disguise and she might well be a princess. But something about his gentle demeanor and smile made her wonder if he was catching a glimpse of something special in her that she had long forgotten about. Her thoughts began to race in new directions. Could I just walk away from this regiment? Do I even know in what direction is home? The food here might be lousy and the days unmemorable, but there's safety in numbers. But she started to walk, stopping half a dozen times to weigh her options yet again and look back at the others who picked up their spears and had fallen back into rank without question. Right, left. She knew the drill. It was unexciting. She could do it on autopilot, but it was so comfortably predictable. Nonetheless, her numbness had worn off, and exhilaration at the unknown was setting in. It was scary having no roadmap or someone to shout directions at her, but she also began to notice little things like the moss on rocks, a line of purposeful ants, and the light and dark patches created by the sun and its shadows. A sense of excitement began to bubble up in her at the thought of the road, the villages, the new vistas that lay ahead, and home, family. Her peon thoughts were dropping away one by one as she walked. Will she keep walking towards the sun? Will she rediscover her royal roots? I think so, because her foot soldier days are, quote unquote, so not her. And returning to paths outgrown is a dead end. Pretty precious. All right, thank you so much. If anybody has any more questions during the break here, you can stick around and I'm happy to answer these. If you have any questions about the program, the first one is done over 3 months with some conference calls. We just come together for 3 days. Linda has been through the program, as have a number of other people, not in the room here, but Linda has been through. There's a second program called Applying the Enneagram, which we can talk about. And the program's both in St. Louis and in California.
And what do you judge?
It's all on the website. There's a range. There's a sliding scale. It's like 5 something to 9 something. You pick anywhere in that range. It includes individual appointments with me, conference calls, and the 3-day thing. It's all on the website, educariunlearning.com. But if anybody has any more questions, just come on up and I'm happy to ask. So thank you.